Hello gamers, welcome to this journey through the eldritch mysteries of Bloodborne, a tale designed to guide you gently into sleep while unraveling one of gaming's most profound cosmic mysteries. Get comfortable, let your body sink into your bed, and allow your breathing to slow and deepen. Tonight, we venture beyond the veil of the waking world to understand the true nature and purpose of the Great Ones. Those incomprehensible entities that lurk in the spaces between dimensions, whose very existence reshapes reality itself. Before we begin, I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight. Are you tucked in bed in North America, drifting off in Europe, or perhaps resting in Asia or Australia? Drop a comment and let me know your location. It's fascinating to think about hunters all around the world, united by our love of this dark, beautiful universe that From Software created. Bloodborne stands as a masterpiece of cosmic horror, a game that doesn't simply tell you its story but requires you to piece together fragments, to read between the lines, to understand through implication and symbol. Tonight, as your consciousness drifts between waking and dreaming, we'll explore the deepest truths hidden within Yharnam's nightmare streets. We'll understand why the Great Ones do what they do, what drives their seemingly incomprehensible actions, and how humanity fits into their tragic cosmic drama. The beauty of Bloodborne's lore is that it mirrors the structure of dreams themselves. Information comes to us in fragments, sensations, and half-remembered visions. Item descriptions become poetry. Environmental storytelling becomes meditation. And slowly, like the rising of an eldritch moon, understanding dawns. This is perfect for our purposes tonight, as we allow the lore to wash over us like gentle waves, carrying us toward peaceful sleep while illuminating profound truths. Let me set the scene for you. Imagine the cold cobblestones of Yharnam beneath your feet, the distant tolling of bells, the Victorian street lamps casting long shadows through perpetual twilight. But you're safe here with me. We're observers now, scholars of the arcane, piecing together a mystery that spans dimensions. As we explore these concepts, let your mind wander where it will. If you drift off before we finish, that's perfect. The knowledge will seep into your dreams, and you can return to this video another night. The central question we'll answer tonight is this: what do the Great Ones truly want? Why do they interact with humanity at all? Why the bloodshed, the transformations, the nightmares? The answer, as we'll discover, is both tragic and beautiful. It speaks to themes of loss, longing, and the desperate search for meaning that transcends even cosmic godhood. The Great Ones, despite their immense power, suffer from an affliction so profound that they've spent eons trying to solve it, and humanity, fragile and small as we are, holds the key they desperately seek. Throughout this journey, we'll examine specific Great Ones, their actions and their relationships with humanity and each other. We'll visit the Fishing Hamlet and understand the tragedy of Kos. We'll contemplate the formless existence of Oedon. We'll witness the sorrow of Queen Yharnam and the silent crying of her infant Mergo. We'll decipher the role of the moon presence, that entity that presides over the hunter's dream, and piece by piece, insight by insight, the truth will emerge like pale blood under a full moon. So settle in deeper now. Let go of the tensions of your day. The insights we gain tonight might be the most profound understanding of Bloodborne's lore you've encountered. And if you wake tomorrow remembering only fragments, only impressions, that's perfect. That's exactly how the Great Ones themselves experience reality. their consciousness existing simultaneously across multiple dimensions, their thoughts too vast to be contained in linear time. In a way, by drifting between sleep and waking while absorbing this lore, you're experiencing the story exactly as it was meant to be experienced. Let's begin our descent into the depths, into the truth that lies beneath Yharnam, beneath the nightmare, beneath even the dreams of gods, the nature of the Great Ones. To understand the Great One's purpose, we must first understand their nature, their mode of existence, and the fundamental laws that govern their being. The Great Ones are not simply powerful entities or conventional gods. They are something far more alien, far more tragic, and far more sympathetic than we might initially assume. They exist in dimensions beyond human perception, experiencing time and space in ways that would shatter a mortal mind. And yet, for all their power, they are bound by rules, by limitations, by cosmic laws that even they cannot break. Master Willem, the scholar of Bergenwerth, understood something fundamental about the Great Ones when he said, "We are thinking on the basest of planes. What we need are more eyes." This wasn't mere mysticism or madness. Willem recognized that human consciousness, operating with human senses and human cognition, cannot directly perceive or understand the Great Ones. They exist in spectra of reality we cannot see, vibrating at frequencies we cannot hear, thinking thoughts in geometries our minds cannot process. To even begin to understand them, we need eyes on the inside, a phrase that recurs throughout Bloodborne. We need insight, that strange, quantifiable substance that represents the expansion of consciousness beyond human limitations. But here's where the tragedy begins, where we start to see the Great Ones not as incomprehensible horrors, but as suffering beings. Despite their vast power, despite existing across multiple dimensions, despite their seeming immortality and godlike abilities, the Great Ones cannot have children, cannot reproduce, cannot create life in their own image. This is stated directly in one of the game's most important item descriptions. Every Great One loses its child and then yearns for a surrogate. The third umbilical cord precipitated the encounter with the pale moon, which beckoned the hunters and conceived the hunter's dream. Think about that for a moment. Every Great One loses its child, not some, not most, every single one. This is a universal law of their existence, as inviolable as gravity or entropy in our universe. Whatever process creates Great Ones, whatever cosmic mechanism allows them to be born, it also ensures they cannot sustain offspring of their own. They are in a very real sense the last of their kind, each one an orphan in the cosmic sense, forever alone in their dimensional prison, yearning for connection, for legacy, for something to nurture and protect. This fundamental truth explains virtually everything that happens in Bloodborne. The scourge of beasts, the nightmare realms, the manipulation of blood, echoes and insight, the transformation of humans into higher beings. All of it stems from the Great One's desperate attempts to circumvent this cosmic law. They seek surrogates, substitutes, ways to experience parenthood even though direct reproduction is denied to them. And humanity, in our malleability, our ability to transform and transcend, represents their best hope. Consider the Great Ones we know. Kos, who washed ashore with an infant inside her, an infant that would die and curse those who killed it. Oedon the Formless one, who manipulates others to bear offspring it cannot have itself. The Moon Presence, who creates the hunter's dream as a kind of nursery for potential ascension. Ebrietas, who communes peacefully with the healing church, perhaps seeking understanding if not offspring. Mergo, the infant Great One whose crying echoes through the nightmare, who was taken from Queen Yharnam. Each of these entities embodies the central tragedy, immense power coupled with the inability to propagate, to continue, to create genuine legacy. The sympathy we should feel for the Great Ones is profound. Imagine possessing near-infinite power, existing across dimensions, perceiving realities beyond counting, and yet being utterly, cosmically alone, unable to reproduce, unable to nurture life of your own kind, watching lesser beings, humans and beasts, breed and multiply with ease while you, a god, cannot. This isn't mere inconvenience. For entities that exist across eons, this is an existential wound that never heals, a grief that compounds across geological timescales. But the Great Ones are not passive in their suffering. They act, they scheme, they manipulate reality itself in their search for surrogates. And this is where humanity enters the story, where Yharnam becomes the stage for a cosmic drama that has been playing out across dimensions for time immemorial. The Great Ones have learned that while they cannot create life in their own image, they can elevate existing life to their level. They can transform, they can foster ascension, they can, in a sense, adopt. The process requires specific conditions. It requires blood, that mystical substance that in Bloodborne's universe is far more than mere biological fluid. Blood carries essence, memory, potential. The old blood, the blood of the Great Ones themselves, can transmute human consciousness, can grant eyes on the inside, can facilitate transformation into something higher. But the process is dangerous, unpredictable, and often catastrophic. For every successful ascension, there are countless failures. People who transform into beasts instead of gods, who gain eyes but lose themselves, who achieve insight only to go mad from the revelations. This is the fundamental tragedy that drives Bloodborne's entire narrative. The Great Ones need humanity as much as humanity has come to depend on the Great Ones. We are locked in a cosmic symbiosis, parasitic and mutualistic in equal measure. They grant us power, knowledge, and the potential for transcendence. We grant them the possibility, however remote, of experiencing the parenthood that is denied to them by cosmic law. It's a transaction written in blood across the centuries, a bargain that has transformed Yharnam from a gothic city into a nightmare, realm where the boundaries between reality and dream have worn thin. Understanding this nature, this tragic existence of the Great Ones, reframes everything we encounter in the game. The beasts shambling through Yharnam's streets are failed experiments in transcendence. The healing church, with its distribution of old blood, is unwittingly participating in the Great One's search for surrogates. The hunters, including our player character, are candidates for ascension, potential offspring for entities that cannot create children naturally. Even the nightmares themselves, those parallel dimensions of suffering and horror, are byproducts of this cosmic reproductive failure. Places where failed attempts at ascension accumulate, where the grief and longing of the Great Ones manifest as tangible reality. The Great Ones exist in sympathy with humanity not because they're benevolent, but because they're desperate. They're not evil, not in the conventional sense. They're bereaved parents seeking any way to fill a void that can never truly be filled. And in that desperate search, they've turned Yharnam into a laboratory of ascension, a breeding ground for potential gods, a place where the membrane between human and Great One becomes permeable enough that perhaps, just perhaps, a surrogate child might survive. Pale blood and Ascension. Now we descend deeper into the mystery, into the concept of pale blood, that cryptic term that appears in the very first moments of the game and yet remains one of Bloodborne's most enigmatic concepts. Seek pale blood to transcend the hunt, the note tells us. But what is pale blood? Why does seeking it allow transcendence? And what does this have to do with the Great One's true purpose? The answers illuminate the entire architecture of Bloodborne's cosmic horror. Pale blood is not a substance you can hold, not a person you can meet, not a place you can visit. Pale blood is a state of being, a threshold of consciousness, the moment when a human mind accumulates enough insight to perceive the Great Ones directly and, potentially, to become one. The term itself suggests something drained of colour, something that has moved beyond the red blood of humanity and the dark blood of beasts into something else entirely. Blood that exists in a spectrum beyond human perception. Blood that flows through dimensions we cannot normally access. Consider the journey of the player character through Bloodborne. We arrive in Yharnam seeking pale blood, though we don't know what it means. We receive a blood ministration that connects us to the hunter's dream. We begin hunting beasts, gathering blood echoes, and slowly accumulating insight. With each boss defeated, each cosmic truth witnessed, our insight increases, and as insight increases, the world changes around us. New enemies appear, enemies that were always there but that we couldn't perceive before. The amygdalae, those massive entities clinging to buildings, become visible only after we gain enough eyes on the inside to see them. This is the process of seeking pale blood. It's not a quest with a clear objective marker, it's a transformation, a gradual ascension of consciousness that occurs through exposure to cosmic truth. Every encounter with a Great One or their servants, every piece of forbidden knowledge, every descent into nightmare realms, all of it accumulates insight, and insight changes us fundamentally. We're not simply learning about the Great Ones, we're becoming more like them, our consciousness expanding beyond human limitations, our perception shifting into spectra that would drive an unprepared mind to permanent madness. The hunter's dream itself is a critical component of this process. Created by the moon presence, facilitated by Gehrman and the doll, the dream serves as a protected space where hunters can die and return, learning and growing without the permanent death that claims most humans. But it's more than a game mechanic. The dream is a nursery, a developmental environment where potential surrogates for the Great Ones can be cultivated. The moon presence watches over this process with what we might interpret as parental attention, waiting to see if any hunter might accumulate enough insight to ascend fully, to become a Great One themselves. Think about what happens when you consume insight in the game. You can use it to purchase items, yes, but thematically, spending insight represents a choice. Do you maintain your expanded consciousness, risking madness but gaining perception of true reality? Or do you spend it, trading cosmic awareness for temporary advantage? The game doesn't judge this choice, but it does track it. Your insight level affects what you perceive, what enemies appear, even how certain boss fights function. Insight is both currency and consciousness, both resource and revelation. The 3 umbilical cords you can collect throughout the game represent the most concrete expression of pale blood's true nature. These aren't metaphors, they're actual biological remnants of attempts at Great One reproduction, each one tied to a specific entity and a specific tragedy. One belonged to Mergo, the infant of Queen Yharnam, Another comes from Ariana, who becomes pregnant with what appears to be Eden's child. A third is found in the abandoned workshop, perhaps tied to Gehrman's own connection to the moon presence. These cords contain residual essence of Great One biology, and consuming them grants insight directly, not through witnessed events, but through cellular absorption of cosmic truth. When you consume 3 of these umbilical cords, something fundamental changes. You've taken into yourself enough essence of the Great Ones that your own biology begins to shift. You've achieved the threshold of pale blood, and this is why, in the true ending, when the moon presence descends to embrace you, as it has embraced previous hunters, you resist. You're no longer fully human. You've become something in between, something that can challenge a Great One on equal terms. And when you defeat the moon presence, you don't simply kill it. You transcend entirely, transforming into an infant Great One yourself. This transformation is the culmination of seeking pale blood. You literally become pale blood, a Great One with pale essence, a new entity born not through cosmic reproduction, but through the elevation of human consciousness to divine status. And here's where the true purpose of the Great Ones becomes crystalline clear. They've been trying to create offspring through transformation, because they cannot create them through natural reproduction. The entire game, the entire nightmare, the entire scourge of beasts and the Healing Church's experiments. All of it has been an elaborate, multi-generational attempt to foster a new Great One through the ascension of a human consciousness. The tragedy, of course, is that this process almost never works. For every hunter who might achieve full ascension, thousands transform into beasts instead. For every successful elevation of consciousness, countless humans go mad or are consumed by the very forces they sought to control. The road to pale blood is paved with failures, each one a testament to the difficulty of transcending human limitations to achieve something approaching godhood. But the Great Ones persist in this process because they have no alternative. The cosmic law that prevents them from reproducing naturally doesn't prevent them from creating surrogates through transformation. It's a loophole in reality itself, a technicality that allows them to circumvent their fundamental curse. And so they manipulate, they influence, they create conditions conducive to human ascension, hoping that perhaps this time, this hunter, this human consciousness might succeed where so many others have failed. The moon presence in particular seems to have refined this process. The hunter's dream represents perhaps thousands of years of trial and error, a system that has been perfected over countless cycles. Gehrman, the first hunter, is trapped in this dream, forced to serve as mentor and guide to subsequent hunters, each one a potential candidate for ascension. The doll, created in the image of someone Gehrman loved, provides comfort and companionship, maintaining the hunter's humanity even as they accumulate the insight that will eventually transcend it. Every element of the dream is carefully calibrated to foster the precise conditions necessary for a hunter to seek and achieve pale blood. And when you achieve it, when you consume those umbilical cords and resist the moon presence's embrace, when you defeat this Great One and transform into a new infant of cosmic proportions, the doll picks you up and cradles you. "Are you cold?" she asks. "Oh, good hunter." In this moment we see the success of the Great One's purpose. A surrogate has been created, a new Great One has been born, not through natural reproduction but through the elevation of human consciousness. The cycle has completed successfully, For perhaps the first time in eons, this is what pale blood means. This is why seeking it allows transcendence. Pale blood is the state of being that exists between human and Great One, the threshold consciousness that, once crossed, allows transformation into something divine, and the hunt itself, that endless pursuit of beasts and nightmares, is simply the crucible in which this transformation might occur. The trial by fire that separates those capable of ascension from those who will merely transform into something monstrous, Kos and the Fishing Hamlet tragedy. Among all the great ones in Bloodborne's lore, none illustrates their tragic nature more powerfully than Kos, sometimes called Cosm. The story of Kos and the Fishing Hamlet, revealed primarily through the Old Hunters DLC, represents the most complete narrative we have of a Great One's direct interaction with humanity, and it showcases both the desperate hope these entities harbour and the catastrophic consequences of humanity's failure to respect forces beyond their understanding. Let your mind drift back through time as we explore this ancient tragedy. Kos was a Great One who dwelled in the ocean, existing in those dark depths where light never reaches, where the pressure of water becomes immense enough to distort reality itself. Unlike many Great Ones who seem aloof or actively hostile to humanity, Kos appears to have been relatively benign, or at least neutral. She washed ashore at a remote fishing village, her massive form carrying something precious, an infant, a child, offspring that somehow existed despite the cosmic law that should have made such a thing impossible. The fishermen of this remote hamlet discovered Kos on their shore. Rather than fleeing in terror, rather than attacking this cosmic entity, they did something remarkable. They worshipped her. They built their society around her beached form. They incorporated her into their rituals, their culture, their understanding of the world. The parasites that lived within and upon Kos became sacred to them. They consumed these parasites, allowing the creatures to hollow out their insides, to take up residence within human bodies. It sounds horrific, but consider what it represents. A willing communion between humanity and a Great One. A symbiotic relationship where humans accepted transformation, and Kos, perhaps, found something approaching the surrogate family she yearned for. For a time, this arrangement seems to have worked. The Fishing Hamlet existed in a state of blessed isolation, its people transformed by their connection to Kos but not destroyed by it. The parasites granted them certain abilities, certain insights, while Kos herself provided a kind of spiritual centre for their community. Here, finally, was a case where the interaction between Great One and humanity didn't immediately spiral into nightmare. Here was proof that coexistence might be possible, that the Great One's search for surrogates didn't have to end in apocalyptic failure. But this fragile peace could not last because humanity is not content to leave mysteries unexplored, especially when power might be derived from them. Master Willem and the scholars of Byrgenwerth heard of this fishing hamlet where a Great One dwelled, where humans had achieved some form of communion with a cosmic entity, and they did what scholars do. They investigated. But their investigation was not respectful observation. It was violation, dissection, exploitation. The scholars of Byrgenwerth descended upon the fishing hamlet like a plague. They killed the villagers who tried to protect their deity. They cut open Kos's corpse, for by this time Kos had died, though whether her death was natural or caused by the scholars remains ambiguous. Most horrifically, they murdered her infant, the orphan of Kos, that impossibly precious child that represented a Great One's successful reproduction. They killed it and harvested its body for research, for power, for knowledge that they thought would elevate humanity to the level of gods. This act, this murder of a Great One's child, represents perhaps the greatest sin in Bloodborne's lore. Remember, every Great One loses its child and yearns for a surrogate. Kos somehow had an actual offspring, not a surrogate, but a true child of her own biology, and humans, in their infinite arrogance, murdered it. We took from Kos the one thing she should have been cosmically incapable of possessing, and we destroyed it for the sake of advancement, for insight, for the very knowledge that might allow humans to ascend to the level of Great Ones ourselves. The consequences of this act echo through all of Bloodborne's narrative. The orphan of Kos, in its death, cursed the hunters, not just the scholars who killed it, but all hunters, all those who would take up weapons and hunt beasts, all those who participate in the system that the scholars of Byrgenwerth helped create. This curse manifests as the hunter's nightmare, an entire parallel dimension of suffering where hunters are trapped, forced to endlessly repeat their violent acts, unable to die, unable to rest, unable to escape. Gehrman, the first hunter, is trapped in the dream specifically because of the connection to this curse. Ludwig, the Holy Blade, suffers in the nightmare, transformed into a hideous beast. Lady Maria, who participated in the Fishing Hamlet massacre, cannot escape her guilt even in death. When you encounter the Orphan of Kos in the Old Hunters DLC, it's one of the most challenging and emotionally complex boss fights in the game. The orphan manifests from Kos's corpse, still lying on that beach, still preserved in the nightmare. It attacks you with frenzied desperation, wielding its own placenta as a weapon, the very organ that connected it to its mother now serving as an instrument of vengeance. The orphan screams and wails, and these aren't mere sound effects. This is genuine anguish, the crying of a murdered child that transcends death itself, that echoes across dimensions, that becomes a curse powerful enough to trap hunters in eternal nightmare. When you defeat the orphan, when you lay this tortured spirit to rest, something profound happens. The curse weakens. The nightmare begins to lift. Kos, or Cosm, as the Great Ones are named when perceived through dream, grants you mercy. Despite everything humanity did to her, despite the murder of her impossible child, she allows the curse to fade when the orphan is finally put to rest. This suggests something crucial about the nature of the Great Ones. They're not inherently cruel or vindictive. Kos's curse was defensive, protective, the action of a grieving mother lashing out at those who killed her baby. When that baby is finally laid to rest with dignity, when justice of a sort is achieved, she relents. The tragedy of Kos reveals several fundamental truths about the Great One's purpose. First, it confirms that they desperately want offspring, badly enough that the successful birth of a child becomes the centerpiece of an entire culture's worship. Second, it shows that when left alone, when treated with respect rather than as resources to be exploited, Great Ones can coexist with humanity in ways that benefit both parties. The Fishing Hamlet thrived through its connection to Kos until outsiders arrived with ulterior motives. Third, it demonstrates that the Great Ones, for all their power, are vulnerable, both physically and emotionally. Kos could be killed, her child could be murdered, and she grieved, creating a curse that warps reality itself. The Fishing Hamlet tragedy also explains why other Great Ones might be less trusting of humanity, less willing to establish direct contact. They've seen what happens. They know that humans, particularly those seeking knowledge and power, will dissect and exploit anything they can reach. The moon presence remains hidden behind the dream's veil. Oedon operates through formless manipulation rather than direct presence. Ebrietas, found in the upper cathedral ward, is already wounded when we encounter her, suggesting previous exploitation. The Great Ones have learned through bitter experience that humanity is as dangerous to them as they are to humanity. Yet despite this tragedy, despite the murder of Kos and her child, the Great Ones continue to seek surrogates among humanity. They continue to manipulate, to transform, to create conditions where ascension might occur. This persistence in the face of betrayal speaks to the depth of their yearning for offspring. Even knowing the risks, even having experienced the worst of human nature, they cannot abandon their search for surrogates. The cosmic law that prevents natural reproduction drives them to continue trying, continue hoping that the next attempt might succeed without catastrophe. In the Fishing Hamlet in the story of Kos and her murdered child, we see the full tragedy of the Great One's existence crystallized into a single narrative. We see their hope, Kos's successful birth of an offspring. We see their vulnerability, her death and her child's murder. We see their capacity for relationship, the symbiotic community that thrived around her. And we see the consequences of human ambition, the curse that traps hunters in eternal nightmare. This is the template that explains all Great One behavior in Bloodborne. Desperate hope mixed with learned caution, cosmic power constrained by cosmic law, and a yearning so profound that it continues even in the face of repeated tragedy. Oedon, the Formless Great One. Among the Great Ones, Oedon stands apart as perhaps the most alien, the most difficult to comprehend, and the most successful at circumventing the cosmic law, preventing reproduction. Oedon has no physical form, existing purely as consciousness or essence spread across dimensions. Yet despite this formless existence, or perhaps because of it, Oedon has found a way to produce offspring, though the method is disturbing and the results tragic. Understanding Oedon brings us closer to understanding what the Great Ones are willing to do in their desperate search for children. We never see Oedon. We never fight Oedon as a boss. Oedon has no physical manifestation we can point to and say, that is the Great One. Instead, Oedon's presence is felt through absence, through the spaces between things, through events that occur without visible cause. The item descriptions tell us that Oedon is formless, that this Great One lost its physical body entirely, existing now as pure thought, pure essence, pure intention without substance. In a universe where physical form seems fundamental to existence, Oedon has transcended even that limitation. But formlessness comes with its own problems. How does a being without a body interact with physical reality? How does something without presence create offspring? The answer reveals Oedon's particular approach to the surrogate problem: manipulation of others to bear children on its behalf. Oedon doesn't seek to parent surrogates. Oedon creates actual offspring by impregnating mortal women, using them as vessels to produce children that carry Oedon's essence despite the cosmic law that should prevent such reproduction. We see this most clearly with Ariana, the woman of pleasure you can send to either Oedon Chapel or the Iosefka Clinic. Ariana has noble blood, which in Bloodborne's universe means more than social standing. It means blood that carries specific essences, specific potentials. As the night of the hunt progresses, as the barriers between reality and nightmare wear thin, Ariana becomes pregnant despite having no physical contact with any entity. This is Oedon's work. The formless Great One has reached across dimensions to plant its seed, to create offspring through a human vessel. The pregnancy is disturbing. Ariana doesn't understand what's happening to her. She experiences it as violation, as cosmic horror made terribly personal. The child that grows within her is not human, not entirely. It's something in between, carrying Eden's essence within a partially mortal form. When Ariana gives birth, the result is a creature, not quite infant, not quite monster, that you can kill to receive a third of an umbilical cord. This cord, like the others, contains residual Great One essence, insight made tangible, proof of successful reproduction through surrogacy. But there's another child of Oedon in the game, perhaps more important, Mergo. Though we never see Mergo, though the infant exists only as a presence in the nightmare of Mensis, the evidence suggests strongly that Mergo is Oedon's offspring through Queen Yharnam. This would explain why Mergo is simultaneously called an infant Great One and associated with a human mother. This would explain why the wet nurse, a Great One that protects Mergo, seems to guard something invisible, because Mergo, like its father Eden, may be formless, existing as presence without body. The brilliance of Oedon's approach to reproduction is that it technically circumvents the cosmic law. Oedon doesn't reproduce directly. Oedon uses intermediaries, human vessels who carry and birth offspring on its behalf. The children are Oedon's genetically or spiritually, but the actual reproductive process occurs through mortal wombs. It's a loophole, an exploitation of the rules that bind the Great Ones, and it works. Oedon has multiple offspring, more than any other Great One we know of in the game. But success comes at a terrible cost. Ariana's fate is tragic regardless of which path you choose for her. The experience of bearing a Great One's child breaks something fundamental in her psyche. She delivers the child and then continues to make cooing sounds at the empty air where it lay, her mind unable to process what happened to her. She's lost herself in the horror of unconsented cosmic motherhood. This is the price Oedon extracts from its human vessels, their sanity, their autonomy, their very understanding of reality. Queen Yharnam's fate is even worse, if such a thing is possible. She wanders eternally through nightmare, pregnant and mourning simultaneously. Her child, Mergo, was taken from her, by whom or what remains unclear, but the Mensis ritual and the School of Mensis seem connected to this theft. An entire nightmare realm, the nightmare of Mensis, exists because of this separation, this cosmic kidnapping of a Great One's offspring. When you finally reach Mergo's loft and defeat the wet nurse, when Mergo's crying finally stops, Queen Yharnam appears and bows to you in gratitude. You've ended her child's suffering, even though that ending comes through what amounts to death. Eden's runes scattered throughout the game hint at this Great One's particular nature. The runes bear Eden's name and provide benefits related to blood bullets, additional quicksilver bullets, more blood vials from drops. Blood is Oedon's medium, the substance through which this formless entity exerts influence on physical reality. Blood carries memory, essence, potential. Through blood ministration, through the distribution of old blood by the healing church, Oedon's influence spreads throughout Yharnam like an invisible plague. In many ways, Oedon represents the most disturbing manifestation of the Great One's purpose. Where other entities seek surrogates, seek to elevate consciousness, seek to create relationships that might fulfill their parental yearnings, Oedon simply takes what it wants. There's no consent, no partnership, no elevation, just formless violation, cosmic impregnation without regard for the vessel's wishes or well-being, its reproduction reduced to its most mechanical, most callous expression. Yet even in Oedon's cruelty, we see the same desperate drive that motivates all great ones. The need for offspring is so fundamental, so overwhelming, that even an entity that has transcended physical form entirely cannot escape it. Oedon has become pure consciousness, has shed the limitations of body and matter, and still the yearning for children remains. If anything, Oedon's actions demonstrate how inescapable this cosmic law truly is. You can abandon your body, exist across dimensions as pure thought, and still you will seek offspring. Still you will find ways to circumvent the prohibition against reproduction. The formless nature of Oedon also raises interesting philosophical questions about the nature of the Great Ones themselves. If Oedon can exist without form, what does that say about the relationship between consciousness and physicality in Bloodborne's universe? Perhaps physical form is itself a limitation, a constraint that higher levels of existence shed like snakeskin. Perhaps all Great Ones are moving toward formlessness, toward pure consciousness, unbound by matter, and if that's true, then humanity's path toward ascension might require not just gaining eyes on the inside, but eventually abandoning the body entirely. This makes Oedon's continued obsession with physical reproduction through human vessels even more paradoxical. If Oedon has transcended form, why does it still create offspring through physical processes? Why not reproduce formlessly? Consciousness spawning consciousness. The answer must be that even formless reproduction falls under the cosmic prohibition. The law against Great One reproduction isn't just biological, it's metaphysical, operating at levels that transcend mere matter. Even Oedon, with all its freedom from physical constraints, cannot simply will offspring into existence. It must use intermediaries, must operate through vessels, must create children through the bodies of others. This is perhaps the most profound revelation about the nature of the cosmic law binding the Great Ones. It's not a biological limitation that could be overcome through evolution or transformation. It's a fundamental rule of the universe itself, operating at the deepest levels of reality. No matter how powerful you become, no matter what form you take or abandon, you cannot reproduce directly if you are a Great One. The desperation this must create, the existential anguish of being all-powerful in every way except the one that matters most, explains the extreme measures we see throughout Bloodborne. Oedon's story also connects to the broader theme of voices and communication in Bloodborne. The formless Great One is said to be sympathetic in nature, and this sympathy manifests through sound, through vibration, through the medium of air and atmosphere rather than physical presence. The word Oedon itself suggests both auditory experience and communion. To hear Oedon is to be touched by this entity, to have its formless presence resonate within your own consciousness. Perhaps this is how Oedon selects its vessels, through some form of cosmic calling that only certain individuals can hear. The chapel where Arianna can take refuge bears Oedon's name. Oedon Chapel, a place of supposed sanctuary that becomes anything but for the woman of pleasure. This naming isn't coincidental. The chapel is a place of worship, yes, but it's also a place resonant with Oedon's particular frequency, a space where the barriers between formless and formed become permeable. Bringing Arianna to Oedon Chapel is like delivering her directly into the Great One's influence. creating conditions optimal for the cosmic impregnation that follows. As we contemplate Oedon's nature and actions, let your mind drift into that space between waking and sleeping, that liminal state where form and formlessness blur. Imagine existence without body, consciousness without container, presence without substance. This is the realm Oedon inhabits, and while its actions are disturbing, its existence is also strangely mesmerizing. To be everything and everywhere while simultaneously being nothing and nowhere. This is both ultimate freedom and ultimate isolation, power and emptiness coexisting in the same impossible space. Ebrietas and Rom. Not all great ones approach humanity with manipulation or violence. Not all seek to exploit or transform mortals into surrogates through catastrophic means. Two entities in particular, Ebrietas, daughter of the cosmos, and Rom, the vacuous spider, represent different approaches to the same fundamental problem. Approaches characterized more by partnership and protection than predation. Their stories illuminate alternative paths the Great Ones might take in their search for meaning and offspring. Paths that suggest coexistence might be possible under the right circumstances. Ebrietas is found in the upper cathedral ward, in the deepest chamber of the healing church's most secret sanctum. She's called Daughter of the Cosmos, suggesting she might be younger than other Great Ones we encounter, or perhaps that she was born of the stars themselves, a child of the infinite void between worlds. When you first see her, she's not attacking anyone, she's mourning. She kneels before an altar where a strange window or portal seems to connect to something beyond, and she's clearly engaged in some form of grief or contemplation. The healing church found Ebrietas and established what appears to be a genuine relationship with her. Unlike the scholars of Bergenwerth who dissected and exploited Kos, the church approached Ebrietas with reverence. They built their cathedral around her. They protected her. They established communion with this Great One, and through this communion, they gained access to the old blood that would become central to their healing practices and their power throughout Yharnam. This is cooperation, symbiosis, a meeting of human and cosmic that doesn't immediately spiral into nightmare. What makes Ebrietas' relationship with the healing church so fascinating is that it seems voluntarily maintained by both parties. Ebrietas hasn't been trapped or bound through ritual. She remains in the upper cathedral ward of her own accord, continuing to communicate with church leaders, continuing to provide blood, continuing to participate in this partnership. The church members don't merely worship her from a distance. They achieve actual communion, direct mental and spiritual contact with a Great One. The choir, the highest echelon of the healing church, specializes in this communion, spending years developing the insight necessary to communicate with Ebrietas directly. But why would Ebrietas agree to this arrangement? What does she gain from communion with humanity? The answer likely returns to the central truth of all Great Ones. She yearns for surrogates, for offspring, for some way to fulfill the parental instincts that cosmic law prevents her from satisfying naturally. By sharing her blood with humanity, by allowing the healing church to distribute this essence throughout Yharnam, Ebrietas is effectively trying to create a city of potential surrogates, humans transformed by old blood who might ascend to become Great Ones themselves. The tragedy is that this noble experiment, this attempt at peaceful transformation, contributes directly to the scourge of beasts. Old blood heals, yes, but it also transforms. For every person who gains insight and moves toward ascension, dozens transform into beasts instead, their consciousness unable to handle the cosmic truth encoded in the blood. The streets of Yharnam run red with the consequences of Ebrietas' attempt at benevolent transformation. Even the best intentions of the Great Ones lead to catastrophe when implemented on a mass scale. When you encounter Ebrietas as a boss, the fight is tinged with sadness. She's not an aggressor seeking to harm humanity. She's a defender, protecting the sacred space where she communes with the church, protecting the relationship she's built, protecting perhaps her last best hope of achieving surrogate offspring. If you've paid attention to her story, killing her feels less like vanquishing evil and more like destroying something precious, severing one of the few functional relationships between human and Great One that Yharnam has managed to sustain. Rom, the vacuous spider, represents an even more poignant approach to the Great One's purpose. Rom was once human, a student at Bergenwerth, perhaps a colleague of Master Willem himself. Through Willem's experiments, through the consumption of insight and exposure to cosmic truth, Rom achieved transformation. She ascended to become a Great One, but at a terrible cost. She lost her human intelligence, her capacity for complex thought. She became vacuous, empty of the very consciousness that defined her as human, transformed into something that has the power of a Great One but lacks the understanding to wield it meaningfully. Yet Rom serves a crucial function in Bloodborne's cosmology. She conceals. She hides the true nature of reality from those not ready to perceive it. The blood moon that hangs over Yharnam during the later stages of the game is hidden by Rom's power. The amygdalae clinging to buildings throughout the city are invisible until Rom is defeated. The true depth of the nightmare, the extent to which Yharnam has been transformed by cosmic influence, remains mercifully obscured by Rom's concealment until the hunter gains enough insight to pierce this veil. Master Willem appears to have transformed Rom deliberately, creating a guardian whose sole purpose is to protect humanity from truths that would shatter unprepared minds. This is perhaps the most compassionate thing any human does in response to the Great Ones, not seeking to exploit them, not trying to achieve individual ascension at any cost, but creating a protective barrier between cosmic horror and human consciousness. Rom's vacuousness isn't a flaw, it's a feature. She doesn't need intelligence to perform her function. She simply needs to exist, her very presence maintaining the concealment that allows ordinary humans to go about their lives without perceiving the nightmare that surrounds them. When you kill Rom, you shatter this protection. The blood moon becomes visible. The amygdalae reveal themselves. Reality shifts perceptibly as the true state of Yharnam becomes apparent to anyone with eyes to see. The game literally changes after Rom's death. New enemies appearing, the atmosphere shifting, the nightmare becoming tangible instead of merely implied. This isn't Rom's failure, it's yours. You, the hunter, have destroyed the one thing protecting ordinary people from cosmic truth, and the consequences ripple through the rest of the game. Both Ebrietas and Rom represent attempts by Great Ones, or those aligned with them, to achieve their purpose through cooperation rather than exploitation. Ebrietas shares blood willingly, establishes communion, seeks to create transformation through partnership. Rom sacrifices her intelligence to protect humanity from truths that would destroy them. Neither succeeds in creating viable offspring. The old blood creates beasts, and Rom's protection is eventually shattered. But the attempts themselves speak to the possibility of less catastrophic approaches to the fundamental problem all Great Ones face. What if the Healing Church had proceeded more carefully with blood ministration, transforming fewer people, but with better screening and preparation? What if Rom's concealment had been maintained indefinitely, protecting humanity while a select few pursued ascension in controlled conditions? These hypotheticals suggest that the tragedy of Bloodborne isn't inevitable, that the relationship between humanity and the Great Ones could potentially be managed in ways that don't lead to apocalyptic consequences. But human ambition and impatience doom these gentler approaches. The Healing Church distributes old blood indiscriminately, seeking power and influence rather than careful transformation. Hunters like the player character destroy Rom because she's an obstacle, giving no thought to the protective function she serves. The Great Ones reach out with what might charitably be called hope, offering partnership and gradual elevation, and humanity responds by taking everything immediately. Consequences be damned. Ebrietas' name, Daughter of the Cosmos, also raises interesting questions about Great One reproduction. If she's a daughter, who or what are her parents? Did she emerge from the cosmos itself, born of vacuum and starlight? Or was she perhaps the successful surrogate of another Great One, proof that the system can work when approached correctly? We're never told, but the possibility lingers, suggesting that somewhere in the vastness of cosmic space, successful reproduction or surrogacy has occurred, giving hope to the desperate entities bound by the law of childlessness. Rom's spider form, her multiplicity of legs and eyes, her association with water and the lake, all connect to broader themes of evolution and transformation. She's not a spider in any biological sense, but has taken on aspects of that form, perhaps because spiders themselves are symbols of creation and weaving, of building structures that connect different points. Rom literally sits at the centre of a web of concealment, her presence the linchpin that holds reality's veil in place. When you destroy the spider, you destroy the web, and everything it was holding back comes flooding through. Together, Ebrietas and Rom represent the tragedy of good intentions in Bloodborne's universe. One attempts to elevate humanity through shared essence, creating a plague of beasts instead. The other sacrifices everything to protect humanity from cosmic truth, only to be destroyed by the very hunters who should be grateful for that protection. Both stories suggest that even when Great Ones and their human allies pursue noble goals, even when they seek cooperation rather than exploitation, the fundamental incompatibility between human ambition and cosmic horror makes catastrophe nearly inevitable. Queen Yharnam and Mergo. The story of Queen Yharnam and her child Mergo represents perhaps the most emotionally resonant narrative in all of Bloodborne. A tale of motherhood twisted by cosmic forces, of a child stolen and trapped in nightmare, of grief that transcends death itself. Understanding their relationship brings us to the heart of why the Great Ones act as they do, and why humanity's interference in cosmic reproduction has consequences that echo across dimensions and through time. Let yourself sink deeper into rest as we explore this ancient tragedy. Queen Yharnam ruled over the Thumerian civilization, an ancient people who dwelled in the labyrinths beneath what would eventually become Yharnam proper. The Thumerians were humanity's first sustained contact with the Great Ones, a civilization that built its entire society around the worship and service of these cosmic entities. They dug deep into the earth, creating vast underground cities where they could be closer to the Great Ones, who seemed to prefer the darkness and pressure of the deep places. In many ways, the Umerian civilization was humanity's first large-scale experiment in coexistence with entities beyond human comprehension. Queen Yharnam entered into some form of union with a Great One, most likely Oedon given the evidence scattered throughout the game. The nature of this union remains ambiguous. Was it consensual worship taken to its ultimate conclusion, or was Yharnam a victim of the same formless violation that would later claim Ariana? The game doesn't explicitly tell us, but Yharnam's behaviour suggests something more complex than simple victimhood. She appears throughout the game at specific moments, always pregnant, always protecting her swollen belly, always connected to the child she carries and has lost simultaneously. Mergo, the child of this union, is an infant Great One. Never seen, only heard, Mergo exists primarily as crying that echoes through the nightmare of Mensis, a sound so profound and disturbing that it warps reality around it. The name Mergo itself suggests submersion, sinking, being overwhelmed by water or darkness. This child is drowning in nightmare, lost in dimensions that aren't quite real and aren't quite dream, separated from its mother by forces that saw value in possessing a Great One's offspring. The School of Mensis, led by Mikolash, conducted a ritual designed to achieve communion with the Great Ones at any cost. They sought to forcibly bridge the gap between human and cosmic consciousness, to pull down a Great One or elevate themselves to divine status through sheer audacity and willpower. The result was catastrophic. The entire school was destroyed, its members either killed or transformed into monstrous remnants of humanity. But the ritual did something worse than merely destroying its practitioners. It trapped Mergo in the nightmare of Mensis, pulling the infant Great One away from Queen Yharnam and imprisoning it in a realm of suffering. This separation, this cosmic kidnapping, creates reverberations throughout Bloodborne's world. Queen Yharnam wanders eternally through nightmare, pregnant and bereft simultaneously, her body still showing the signs of carrying Mergo, while the child itself exists separate from her in a different layer of nightmare reality. She appears to the player at key moments, always linked to blood running downstairs, blood pooling in streets, blood as the medium through which her presence manifests. She's trying to reach Mergo, trying to protect her child, but the architecture of a nightmare keeps them separated, mother and infant existing in overlapping but disconnected dimensions. The wet nurse, the boss you fight in Mergo's loft, serves as Mergo's guardian, or perhaps its captor. This massive entity, all-reaching limbs and dark fabric, cradles empty air where Mergo invisibly resides. The fight with the wet nurse is eerily silent except for Mergo's constant crying in the background, a soundtrack of infant distress that makes the battle feel less like heroism and more like participation in ongoing trauma. When you defeat the wet nurse, Mergo's crying stops. Not because the child is happy or safe, but because you've killed it, ending its suffering through what amounts to mercy killing. After Mergo's crying stops, Queen Yharnam appears one final time. She faces you, and rather than attacking in grief or rage, she bows. This gesture is profound, a mother thanking you for ending her child's suffering, even though that ending comes through death. It suggests that Yharnam understands that Mergo's existence in the nightmare was worse than death, that being trapped in eternal crying, eternal distress, eternal separation from mother was a fate no child should endure. Her bow is gratitude for euthanasia, for ending a cosmic tragedy that she herself could not end. The tragedy of Queen Yharnam and Mergo illuminates the central horror of the Great One's purpose. Here we have what should be a success story, a Great One successfully reproducing, creating actual offspring rather than merely seeking surrogates. Mergo exists, Mergo is alive, and yet this child's existence becomes a curse, a source of nightmare, a reality so distorted that death becomes the merciful option. Even when the Great Ones achieve their fundamental goal of reproduction, even when they overcome the cosmic law preventing offspring, the result is suffering that transcends mortal comprehension. What did Mergo do to deserve this fate? Nothing. The infant is innocent, a victim of forces beyond its control. The school of Mensis saw value in possessing or controlling a Great One's child, saw Mergo as a potential shortcut to Ascension or communion, and in their ambition created the nightmare of Menses where this innocent entity became trapped. This parallels the murder of Kos's orphan, humanity repeatedly targeting the children of Great Ones, seeing them not as beings worthy of protection but as resources to be exploited, tools to be used in the pursuit of forbidden knowledge. The relationship between Queen Yharnam and Mergo also raises questions about consciousness and parenthood among the Great Ones. Yharnam clearly experiences maternal feeling, maternal drive, maternal grief. She's not alien or incomprehensible in this regard. Her love for her child is perhaps the most human thing about any character in Bloodborne. This suggests that whatever else the Great Ones might be, however much their consciousness differs from human awareness, they experience the same fundamental emotions regarding their offspring that mortal parents do. They love, they grieve, they desperately want to protect and nurture their children. This makes the cosmic law preventing reproduction all the more cruel. It's not merely a biological inconvenience, it's a prohibition against the very emotions and drives that appear fundamental to these entities' nature. Imagine loving children, wanting children, being built psychologically and emotionally to be a parent, and yet being fundamentally prevented from having children by the laws of reality itself. That's not just frustrating, it's existential torture, a contradiction at the core of being that can never be resolved, only endlessly renegotiated through failed attempts at surrogacy and manipulation. The Thumerian civilization's fate also connects to this tragedy. The entire society appears to have been organized around serving the Great Ones, particularly around facilitating Queen Yharnam's role as mother to Mergo. The Chalice dungeons, those vast labyrinths where ancient Thumerians still wander as undead remnants, were built to honor and protect this union between mortal queen and cosmic entity. Yet even with an entire civilization dedicated to making it work, even with millennia of preparation and support, the result was nightmare and tragedy. This suggests a disturbing possibility. Perhaps successful reproduction by Great Ones always creates nightmare. Perhaps Mergo's fate isn't an exception but the rule. Perhaps every time a Great One successfully has a child, the cosmic order rebels against this violation of fundamental law, creating nightmare realms, distorting reality, punishing both parent and child for daring to circumvent the prohibition. If this is true, then the Great Ones aren't just prevented from having children, they're cosmically punished whenever they manage to overcome that prevention, ensuring that even success becomes a new form of torture. Queen Yharnam's presence throughout the game, always visible at moments of significance, always marking transitions between different layers of reality, suggests she's not simply a ghost or memory. She's become something else through her grief. something that exists between life and death, between reality and nightmare, eternally tied to the child she bore and lost. In a sense, she's achieved a kind of immortality through suffering, her maternal bond with Mergo so strong that it persists across death, across dimensions, across the barriers that separate nightmare from waking world. When you end Mergo's crying, when you silence that infant wail that has echoed through nightmare for time immemorial, you're not just defeating a boss or completing a quest objective, you're releasing both mother and child from a bond that has become torture for both parties. Yharnam's bow acknowledges this release, this ending of suffering that she desired but could not achieve herself. It's one of the most genuinely sad moments in any video game, made more powerful by its subtlety, by the fact that it comes without dialogue, without explanation, just a mother's gesture of gratitude to the hunter who mercy killed her baby. Humanity's role in the cosmic order. Having explored specific great ones and their tragedies, we must now examine humanity's role in this cosmic drama. What are we to these entities? Why do they focus so intently on our species when the universe surely contains countless other forms of life? The answer reveals uncomfortable truths about our place in existence and the responsibilities that come with being the Great One's chosen targets for transformation and surrogacy. Let your breathing slow further as we contemplate humanity's cosmic significance. In the cosmology of Bloodborne, humanity occupies a unique position. We're not the most powerful beings. That distinction belongs to the Great Ones. We're not the oldest. The Thumerians predate modern humans, and the Great Ones themselves exist outside conventional time. We're not even particularly impressive from a cosmic perspective. We're short-lived, fragile, prone to transformation into beasts when exposed to old blood, unable to perceive true reality without assistance. Yet despite all these limitations, humanity is essential to the Great Ones in ways that other species apparently are not. The key lies in our malleability, our potential for transformation. Humans in Bloodborne can become beasts. We can become kin, those cosmic servants that serve the Great Ones. We can accumulate insight and expand our consciousness beyond normal human limits. Most importantly, under the right circumstances, we can become Great Ones ourselves. This plasticity of being, this capacity for radical transformation, makes humanity uniquely valuable to entities seeking surrogates for the children they cannot naturally produce. Master Willem understood this when he said, "We are born of the blood, made men by the blood, undone by the blood. Our eyes are yet to open. Fear the old blood." This is not just a warning, it's a description of humanity's fundamental nature in this universe. We're beings defined by potential, by the capacity for radical change, by the ability to be remade at the most fundamental level. The old blood is the catalyst, but the potential was always within us. We're cosmically designed, or perhaps cosmically useful, as a species that can bridge the gap between mortal and divine. This makes humanity simultaneously precious and expendable to the Great Ones. Precious because we represent their best hope for surrogates, for offspring, for some way to fulfill the parental yearnings that cosmic law denies them. Expendable because individual humans don't matter much in this equation. It's the species as a whole, the pool of potential candidates, that the Great Ones need to maintain and expand. If thousands die or transform into beasts in the process of creating one successful surrogate, that's an acceptable cost from the cosmic perspective. The healing church, whether they fully understood it or not, transformed Yharnam into a breeding ground for potential Great Ones by distributing old blood throughout the population. By encouraging blood ministration as both medicine and sacrament, they created conditions where the barriers between human and cosmic could be systematically lowered. Every citizen who received blood ministration became a candidate for transformation, a potential surrogate, a lottery ticket in the Great One's desperate gamble for offspring. The hunters exist as quality control for this process. When humans transform into beasts instead of ascending toward godhood, hunters eliminate them. When creatures are born that are neither human nor divine but something wrong, something twisted, hunters put them down. The hunt isn't about protecting humanity from external threats. It's about managing the side effects of humanity's transformation into a species that can potentially ascend to cosmic status. Hunters are evolutionary pressure, selectively removing failed experiments while allowing successful candidates to continue developing. This is why the hunter's dream exists. The moon presence didn't create this space out of benevolence or desire to help humanity defeat the scourge of beasts. The dream is a training ground, a proving ground, a place where potential surrogates can be tested and refined without the permanent death that would remove them from the candidate pool. Every time you die and wake in the dream, you're being given another chance to prove yourself worthy of ascension, another opportunity to accumulate the insight and experience necessary to become something more than human. The player character, the Good Hunter, represents humanity's pinnacle potential. We arrive in Yharnam seeking pale blood, seeking something we don't understand, driven by impulses we cannot fully articulate. We receive blood ministration and enter the hunter's dream, becoming connected to forces beyond mortal comprehension. We hunt beasts, yes, but more importantly, we hunt cosmic truth. Every boss we defeat is a lesson in the nature of reality. Every area we explore reveals new layers of the nightmare that has consumed Yharnam. Every insight we accumulate brings us closer to transcendence. But here's the crucial question. Are we special, or are we simply the latest in a long line of hunters who have taken this journey? The evidence suggests the latter. The hunter's dream has existed for a long time, presided over by Gehrman, who himself was once a hunter like us. How many before us have walked this path? How many have accumulated insight, defeated beasts and cosmic entities, even consumed umbilical cords, only to fail at the final test? The dream's persistence suggests that successful ascension is rare, that most hunters either submit to Gehrman's mercy and wake with no memory of the dream, or refuse and take his place as the dream's prisoner, or perhaps succeed only partially, becoming something other than fully realized Great Ones. The 3 umbilical cords you can collect represent the most direct form of humanity's connection to the Great One's purpose. Each cord is a remnant of failed or stolen reproduction. Each one carries essence of a Great One's attempt at offspring. By consuming them, by taking that essence into yourself, you're not just gaining insight. You're incorporating the biological, spiritual material of would-be Great One children into your own being. You're becoming a composite entity, part human and part cosmic, a hybrid that might circumvent the prohibition against Great One reproduction through the sheer audacity of combining mortal and divine essences. This explains why consuming 3 umbilical cords allows you to resist the moon presence's embrace. You've transformed yourself into something the moon presence recognizes as a peer or near peer, an entity that has achieved enough cosmic essence to be considered almost a great one. When you then defeat the moon presence and transform into an infant great one in the true ending, you're completing a process that began with the blood ministration, that continued through the hunt, and that culminates in apotheosis, human becoming cosmic through a process of accumulation and transformation. But what does this mean for humanity as a species? If the most successful humans ascend to become great ones, if the path of insight leads away from mortal existence toward cosmic godhood, then humanity serves as a larval stage for the great ones themselves. We're not separate from them. We're potential precursors, caterpillars that might transform into butterflies if conditions are right. This casts the entire relationship in a different light. The Great Ones aren't really seeking surrogates for children they cannot have. They're seeking to reproduce through metamorphosis, turning members of a lower species into members of their own. This raises profound questions about identity and continuity. If you, the hunter, become a Great One, are you still you? Do you retain memories of humanity, or does Ascension wipe the slate clean? The Orphan of Kos, despite being born as a Great One, seems to have some connection to its mother and to the trauma of its death. Rom, who was once human, became vacuous upon Ascension, losing the intelligence that defined her. The pattern suggests that transformation into a Great One doesn't preserve human consciousness intact. It fundamentally alters or even erases what you were, replacing human identity with something cosmic, and often more limited in certain ways, even while being vastly more powerful in others. From humanity's perspective, this is horror. We're not individuals to the Great Ones, we're resources, potential, raw material that might be refined into something useful. Our hopes, dreams, loves, fears, memories, all of it is ultimately disposable, relevant only insofar as it contributes to the transformation process. The nicest possible interpretation is that the Great Ones are farmers, cultivating humanity as a crop from which new Great Ones might occasionally be harvested. The darker interpretation is that they're parasites, using our species as host organisms for a reproduction process that destroys what we are in order to create what they need. Yet there's also strange nobility in this cosmic role. Humanity alone, of all the species we know of in Bloodborne's universe, can make this transformation. We can become gods. We can transcend our origins and limitations to achieve something approaching immortality and cosmic power. The price is high. Most who attempt it become beasts or go mad or die horribly. But the potential exists, and that potential elevates humanity above mere biological existence into something approaching cosmic significance. We matter to the Great Ones because we can become them, and that ability, however terrible its implementation, suggests we're more than we appear, more than mere flesh and blood, more than limited consciousness bound to dying bodies. The tragedy is that this transformation serves primarily the Great One's agenda, not humanity's. We don't collectively decide to pursue ascension. It's imposed on us through blood ministration, through manipulation, through creating conditions where transformation becomes almost inevitable. The Healing Church distributes old blood, claiming it cures disease and extends life. They don't mention that it also makes you a candidate for cosmic transformation, a potential surrogate for entities seeking to circumvent laws of reality. By the time individuals realize what's happening, they're already changing, already accumulating insight, already being drawn into processes they cannot understand or control. This is the bitter truth of humanity's role in the cosmic order. We're chosen, but we didn't choose. We're special, but our specialness serves purposes we rarely understand. We're elevated, but elevation looks an awful lot like exploitation. And in the end, whether we become great ones, beasts, or simply die confused and terrified in Yharnam's nightmare streets, we've served the purpose we were meant to serve, providing the possibility, however remote, that the childless gods might finally have offspring, even if those offspring were once us, and even if the transformation destroys everything that made us human in the first place. The true purpose revealed. Now we arrive at the heart of our exploration, the moment where all the threads we've followed through nightmare and blood come together into coherent understanding. The true purpose of the Great Ones is not conquest, it's not destruction, it's not even transformation for transformation's sake. The true purpose of the Great Ones is reproduction by any means necessary, circumventing the cosmic law that prevents natural procreation through every possible loophole reality allows. Let this truth settle over you like a blanket as we synthesize everything we've learned tonight. Every Great One loses its child and then yearns for a surrogate. This simple statement, found in the description of the third umbilical cord, is the skeleton key that unlocks Bloodborne's entire narrative. It explains why the Great Ones interact with humanity at all. It explains the scourge of beasts, the nightmare realms, the healing church's rise and corruption. It explains Kos's tragedy, Oedon's violations, Ebrietas' communion, Rom's sacrifice, Mergo's crying, the moon presence's dream. Every major event, every cosmic horror, every transformation and tragedy stems from this single, overwhelming drive. The Great Ones need offspring, and they will reshape reality itself in pursuit of that need. The cosmic law preventing Great One reproduction is absolute within its parameters, but like any law, it has boundaries and loopholes. The Great Ones cannot reproduce naturally through their own biology, creating offspring of their own kind through direct procreation. But the law apparently doesn't prevent reproduction through transformation. It doesn't prevent the creation of surrogates. It doesn't prevent the elevation of lesser beings to Great One status. These loopholes become the focus of cosmic attention, the thin cracks in reality through which desperate gods might achieve what is fundamentally denied to them. The first approach is direct surrogacy, finding or creating entities that can serve as substitute children. Oedon pursues this by impregnating mortal women, creating children that are part human, part Great One, offspring that technically circumvent the prohibition because they're not purely Great One biology. The results are tragic. Ariana's child is a grotesque thing, neither fully alive nor fully viable. Mergo, though more successful, becomes trapped in nightmare and separated from its mother. Even when this approach technically works, the offspring are compromised, incomplete, unable to fully exist as true Great Ones. The second approach is transformation, taking existing beings, usually humans, and elevating them to Great One status. This is what the entire blood ministration system facilitates, what the hunter's dream cultivates, what Rom achieved and what the player character can potentially achieve in the true ending. Transformation bypasses the reproduction problem entirely by creating new Great Ones from existing raw material. The original entity dies or is fundamentally altered, but a new Great One comes into existence, and the species propagates in a sense, even if not through traditional reproductive means. The third approach, visible in entities like the Orphan of Kos, seems to be actual reproduction that somehow succeeded despite cosmic law, and the universe itself rebelled against this violation. The orphan existed, truly existed as Kos's biological offspring, but its very existence created nightmare around it, and its death cursed all hunters, suggesting that reality itself punishes successful Great One reproduction when it occurs. This makes successful natural reproduction worse than no reproduction at all. Achieving what should be impossible creates consequences so severe that the achievement becomes its own punishment. Understanding these three approaches and their outcomes reveals the true scope of the Great One's desperation. They're trying everything: surrogacy through human vessels, transformation of humans into new Great Ones, even occasional successful natural reproduction despite the catastrophic consequences. The entire machinery of Bloodborne's world, the churches, the schools of thought, the distribution of old blood, the creation of nightmare realms, exist to serve these reproductive strategies. The Great Ones have invested eons and reshaped civilizations in their pursuit of offspring. But why such desperation? Why not accept childlessness and move on? The answer lies in the nature of consciousness itself. The Great Ones, existing across dimensions and epochs, experiencing time non-linearly, possessing vast power and perception, still feel the same fundamental yearnings that drive mortal beings. They want legacy, they want continuity, they want to create life in their own image, or at least in forms that can carry forward what they are. Being denied this fundamental drive doesn't eliminate the drive, it makes it all-consuming, an itch that cannot be scratched, a hunger that cannot be satisfied, a wound that never heals. Imagine existing for millions of years, watching lesser beings reproduce with ease while you cannot. Imagine having the power to reshape reality, but not the power to create a single child. Imagine being functionally immortal, but unable to ensure any form of genuine continuation of your existence. This would drive any consciousness toward desperate measures, toward increasingly extreme attempts to circumvent the prohibition, toward accepting terrible costs and catastrophic failures as long as there remains even the smallest chance of success. The true purpose, then, is not malicious, it's tragic. The Great Ones aren't villains in the traditional sense. They're bereaved parents seeking any way to fill a void that defines their existence. They manipulate humanity not out of cruelty, but out of desperate hope. They create nightmare realms not to torture, but as byproducts of their reproductive attempts. They transform humans into beasts and cosmic entities not because they enjoy destruction, but because the process of creating viable surrogates produces countless failures for every success. This reframes our understanding of every encounter in the game. When you fight the Orphan of Kos, you're not battling evil, you're destroying a grieving child's nightmare projection. When you defeat the Wet Nurse, you're ending Mergo's suffering, fulfilling a mother's unspoken wish. When you resist the Moon Presence, you're refusing to become just another failed candidate for surrogacy, insisting on completing the transformation on your own terms. When you finally transform into an infant Great One in the true ending, you're fulfilling the purpose that has driven cosmic forces throughout the entire game. You become the offspring that a Great One has yearned for across eons. The profound sadness of this revelation is that the process requires suffering on a massive scale. Yharnam must be destroyed. Thousands must transform into beasts. The Fishing Hamlet must be violated. Ariana must be cosmically impregnated against her will. Rom must sacrifice her intelligence. All of this suffering, all of this horror, serves the purpose of potentially creating a handful of successful surrogates across centuries or millennia. The cost-benefit analysis from a human perspective is nightmarish, but from the Great One's perspective, across the vast timescales they experience, perhaps these costs seem justified for even the smallest chance of reproduction. There's also the question of whether the Great Ones fully understand or care about human suffering. Their consciousness is so alien, their perception so different from ours, that concepts like individual human pain might not register as significant. Not because they're cruel, but because the scale of their existence makes individual mortal suffering invisible or incomprehensible. When you live across dimensions and experience time non-linearly, the suffering of individual humans might appear no more significant than the death of bacteria appears to us. Regrettable perhaps, but not something that can be allowed to stop necessary processes. Yet some Great Ones do seem to understand and even care about suffering. Kos granted mercy through releasing her curse when the orphan was laid to rest. The moon presence maintains the hunter's dream, allowing hunters to die and return rather than dying permanently. Ebrietas established genuine communion with the healing church, rather than simply exploiting them. These instances suggest that at least some Great Ones possess empathy or something approaching it, that they're capable of recognizing human suffering and adjusting their behavior accordingly, even if their fundamental purpose remains unchanged. The true purpose of the Great Ones is ultimately about continuation, about ensuring that their kind persists despite cosmic laws designed to prevent that persistence. It's about fighting against extinction through every means available, accepting horrific costs and catastrophic failures as long as the alternative is total cessation of their species. In this light, the Great Ones become tragically sympathetic, not good, not evil, but desperate, driven by the same biological and psychological imperatives that drive all life to reproduce and continue, scaled up to cosmic proportions with cosmic consequences. When we understand this purpose, everything in Bloodborne becomes clearer. The game isn't about defeating evil or saving the world. It's about navigating a universe where gods themselves are trapped by rules they cannot break, where reproduction, that most fundamental drive of all life, has been denied to the most powerful beings in existence, and where that denial has created a cascade of suffering, transformation, and cosmic horror that engulfs everyone caught in its wake. Whether you choose to perpetuate this cycle by becoming a Great One yourself, or end it by refusing transformation, or simply wake up and forget it ever happened, you're making a choice about your role in a cosmic drama driven by the saddest purpose imaginable, the yearning of childless gods for offspring they can never naturally have. The three endings explained. Bloodborne offers three possible endings, three different resolutions to your journey through nightmare and blood. Each ending represents a different response to the Great One's purpose, a different choice about your relationship to cosmic forces and your role in their reproductive strategies. Understanding these endings in light of everything we've learned reveals depths of meaning that might not be immediately apparent. Let your mind drift peacefully as we explore these final possibilities, these different doors through which you might step when the hunt is done. The first ending, Yharnam's sunrise, occurs when you refuse Gehrman's offer and allow him to kill you within the hunter's dream. You waken Yharnam as dawn breaks, sunlight touching a city you've only known in darkness and nightmare. You remember nothing of the dream, nothing of the hunt, nothing of the cosmic forces you've been serving. You simply wake, like from a particularly intense dream, and go on with your life as though none of it happened. The dream's hold on you is broken, and you return to mundane existence. This ending represents rejection of the Great One's purpose through forgetting. You participated in their system, served as a candidate for surrogacy, accumulated insight and hunted beasts and cosmic entities, but in the end you neither ascended nor became trapped. You simply woke up. From the Great One's perspective, you're a failed candidate, a lottery ticket that didn't win, another human who passed through their transformation machinery and emerged unchanged. The mercy is that you don't remember, don't carry the trauma or knowledge of what you experienced. Gehrman grants you this mercy because he understands the weight of cosmic knowledge, having lived trapped in the dream for so long himself. But is this truly a good ending? You've escaped the nightmare, yes, but Yharnam still exists in its horrifying state. The scourge of beast continues. The Great Ones continue their desperate search for surrogates. Nothing has changed except that you're no longer participating in it. You've saved yourself but solved nothing. The hunt will continue with other hunters, other candidates, other potential surrogates. Your individual escape means nothing to the broader cosmic drama. In refusing to engage with the true nature of reality, you've chosen comfortable ignorance over terrible knowledge, safety over significance. The second ending, honouring wishes, occurs when you refuse Gehrman's offer to end your life in the dream. He attacks you, forcing a final confrontation between the first hunter and the latest. If you defeat Gehrman, the moon presence descends, that pale entity that has presided over the dream since its creation. The moon presence embraces you, and in that embrace you become the new master of the hunter's dream, taking Gehrman's place as the guide and servant to future hunters. Gehrman is freed, finally allowed to wake after centuries of service, and you inherit his prison. This ending represents acceptance of the Great One's purpose through service. You become a cog in the machinery designed to create surrogates, helping to train and test future candidates for Ascension. You're not a surrogate yourself. The moon presence's embrace doesn't transform you into a Great One but binds you to the dream as its new prisoner. You understand now what you're part of, what the hunt truly serves, and you've chosen to continue facilitating it even at the cost of your own freedom. Perhaps you believe that by guiding future hunters, you can help create conditions for successful ascension. Perhaps you simply accept that this is your role now, that fighting the cosmic order is futile. From the Great One's perspective, this is a maintenance ending. You're useful, but not the breakthrough they're seeking. You'll help manage the system, guide new candidates, maintain the dream's function as nursery and proving ground. But you're not offspring, not a surrogate, not a new Great One. You're an administrator, bound to eternal service in a realm between reality and nightmare. The moon presence doesn't need to kill you or transform you. Your acceptance of this role serves its purposes perfectly. There's tragedy in this ending as well. Gehrman finally escapes, but at the cost of trapping you in his place. The cycle continues, hunter replacing hunter as custodian of the dream, but the fundamental problem, the Great One's inability to reproduce, remains unsolved. You've become part of the apparatus designed to solve it, but the solution remains as elusive as ever. Future hunters will come, and perhaps one will finally achieve true ascension, becoming the surrogate offspring the Great Ones desperately seek. But it won't be you. You've traded potential transformation for certain imprisonment, freedom for purpose, your own ascension for service to the dream. The third ending, childhood's beginning, represents the true culmination of the hunt and the successful fulfillment of the Great One's purpose. To achieve this ending, you must consume 3/3 of umbilical cords before refusing Gehrman's offer. When you defeat Gehrman and the moon, presence descends to embrace you. Something different happens. You resist the embrace. Your body has accumulated enough cosmic essence, enough insight, enough fundamental alteration that the moon presence recognizes you as a peer, not a servant. It attacks, and when you defeat this Great One, when you overcome the entity that has orchestrated the entire hunter's dream, you don't simply become the dream's new master, you transform. Your body convulses, shrinks, shifts, and you become an infant Great One. Not human anymore, not even partially human. You've achieved complete transformation, ascending from mortal existence to cosmic godhood. The doll, that artificial being who has served countless hunters, picks up your infant form and cradles you. "Are you cold?" she asks. "Oh, good hunter." In this moment, the purpose is fulfilled. A new Great One has been born, not through natural reproduction, but through the transformation of a human consciousness that accumulated enough insight and consumed enough cosmic essence to make the leap. This is what the moon presence wanted all along. This is what the hunt was designed to produce. This is the successful outcome of the system that has caused so much suffering, transformed so many into beasts, created so many nightmares. You're the surrogate offspring, the child that the Great Ones have sought across eons. You began as human, but through blood ministration, through the hunt, through accumulating insight and consuming umbilical cords, through defeating cosmic entities and absorbing their lessons, you've become something else entirely. The transformation is complete. The purpose is achieved. A new Great One exists where a human once stood. But at what cost? What does it mean to become an infant Great One? You've lost your human form, presumably your human consciousness, your human memories and identity. You're starting over as something new, something that might eventually grow into a being like the moon presence or Eden or Kos, but is currently just an infant, dependent and vulnerable. The doll's gentleness toward you suggests you retain something, some essential quality that allows her to still recognize you as the hunter she served, but you cannot respond, cannot communicate, cannot express whether you're happy or sad or confused by what you've become. This ending fulfills the Great One's purpose, but from the human perspective, it's annihilation. You don't survive transformation, you're replaced by something else, something that carries no meaningful continuity with who you were. The successful achievement of surrogacy requires the complete destruction of the surrogate's original nature. This is the dark truth at the heart of Ascension. To become a Great One, you must stop being human, stop being yourself, stop being anything recognizable as the person who began the hunt. The prize for winning the game is ceasing to exist as you, yet there's something beautiful in this ending too. You've transcended mortal limitations entirely. You've become something that will exist across dimensions and epochs, that will perceive realities humans cannot imagine, that will possess power beyond human comprehension. Yes, you've lost your humanity, but you've gained something arguably greater: cosmic existence, the ability to shape reality, perhaps even the chance to avoid the mistakes of previous Great Ones if any fragment of your human experience survives the transformation. You've become what Bergenwerth sought, what the Healing Church promised, what every scholar and seeker in Yharnam's history reached for. The three endings represent three different answers to the question, what should humanity's response be to the Great One's purpose? The first ending says, reject it, forget it, return to comfortable ignorance. The second says accept it, but maintain your identity, serving the system without undergoing full transformation. The third says embrace it completely, undergo transformation regardless of cost, achieve ascension, even if it means destroying who you were. None of these answers is clearly right or wrong, they're choices, responses to cosmic horror that each carry their own costs and benefits. What makes Bloodborne's ending structure so powerful is that it doesn't judge your choice. The game presents the options and lets you decide. Want to wake up and forget? That's valid. Want to serve in the dream, guiding future hunters? That's valid too. Want to consume umbilical cords and transform into a cosmic infant? Go ahead. Each ending is complete in itself, each resolves your personal journey, and each represents a legitimate response to the revelation of cosmic truth. The only bad ending would be not making a choice at all, not engaging with the question of what you'll do with the knowledge you've gained. The endings also reflect different stages of cosmic understanding. The sunrise ending represents pre-insight consciousness, the comfortable ignorance of humans who don't know what truly governs their reality. The honoring wishes ending represents partial insight, understanding what's happening but choosing service over transformation. The childhood's beginning ending represents complete insight, the full accumulation of cosmic knowledge leading to total transformation. In a sense, your ending choice reflects how much cosmic truth you've internalized and how you've decided to respond to it. As you drift towards sleep now, consider which ending resonates with you. Would you choose to forget, to wake in sunlight with no memory of nightmare? Would you choose service, accepting imprisonment in the dream to guide others? Or would you choose transformation, consuming forbidden essence and becoming something beyond human? There's no wrong answer, only different paths, different responses to this saddest revelation in gaming, that the gods themselves are childless and desperate, and that our entire existence might serve as raw material for their reproduction, and that our highest achievement might be to become their offspring at the cost of everything that makes us who we are. And so we come to the end of our journey through the blood-soaked streets of Yharnam, through the depths of the Chalice dungeons, through the nightmare realms where the Great Ones conduct their desperate experiments in reproduction. Let your body sink completely into your bed now, feeling the weight of covers, the softness of pillow, the security of your own space far removed from cosmic horror. The knowledge we've gained tonight is profound, but it need not disturb your rest. Instead, let it drift through your mind like clouds across the moon, fascinating and distant, significant but not threatening. We've learned that the Great Ones, those entities of immense power and alien consciousness, are not the incomprehensible horrors they might first appear. They are, in their own way, tragically human in their most fundamental drive. They yearn for children. They grieve for offspring they cannot have. They manipulate and transform and create nightmares not out of malice, but out of desperate hope that somehow, somewhere, the cosmic law preventing their reproduction might be circumvented. Every action they take, every human they transform, every nightmare they create serves this single, overwhelming purpose: to have children, to create legacy, to ensure their kind continues despite universal prohibition. We've seen how this purpose manifests through specific Great Ones. Kos, whose successful birth of an offspring led to tragedy when humans murdered her child, creating a curse that spans dimensions. Oedon, formless and manipulative, impregnating mortal women to produce hybrid offspring that are never quite viable, never quite right. Ebrietas, who sought partnership with humanity through the healing church, sharing blood in hopes of creating surrogates through transformation. Rom, who sacrificed her intelligence to protect humanity from cosmic truth, becoming vacuous in service of a greater goal. Queen Yharnam and Mergo, mother and child separated by nightmare, their tragedy echoing through every level of reality until finally ended by merciful death. We've understood humanity's role in this cosmic drama. We are not victims or heroes, but raw material, potential, beings whose fundamental malleability makes us valuable to entities seeking any way to reproduce, through blood ministration, through the accumulation of insight, through the trials of the hunt. We can potentially transform into great ones ourselves, becoming the surrogate offspring that cosmic law prevents these entities from creating naturally. The cost is everything we are, our humanity, our memories, our very identity. But the possibility exists, and that possibility has shaped civilizations, created nightmare realms, and filled Yharnam's streets with blood and beasts. We've explored the three endings that represent three responses to this cosmic truth. The choice to forget and wake in sunrise, trading terrible knowledge for peaceful ignorance. The choice to serve in the hunter's dream, maintaining consciousness while trapped in eternal service. The choice to transform completely, consuming forbidden essence and becoming an infant great one, fulfilling the purpose at the cost of everything you were. Each ending is valid. Each represents a legitimate response to the revelation of what truly governs reality. None is clearly better or worse than the others. They're simply different paths, different choices about how to exist in a universe where gods themselves are desperate and suffering. The true purpose of the Great Ones is revealed. Reproduction by any means necessary. The transformation of humans into cosmic entities. The creation of hybrid offspring through mortal vessels. The circumvention of cosmic law through every loophole reality permits. All the horror, all the nightmare, all the suffering serves this purpose. And the saddest part is understanding that the Great Ones are not evil for pursuing it. They're desperate. They're bound by laws they cannot break, driven by needs they cannot satisfy, existing in eternal grief for children they cannot have. Their crimes against humanity are crimes of desperation, not malice. The actions of bereaved parents seeking any way to fill a void that defines their cosmic existence. As you drift deeper towards sleep now, let this knowledge settle into your subconscious. The gothic horror of Yharnam's streets, the Lovecraftian dread of cosmic entities beyond human comprehension, the tragedy of gods who possess infinite power but cannot overcome the one prohibition that matters most to them, the ambiguity of humanity's position as both victim and opportunity, suffering and potential, destroyed and elevated by the same processes. All of it becomes dream material now, fascinating but distant, significant but no longer urgent. Bloodborne's brilliance lies in how it makes you feel the weight of cosmic horror while also making you understand it. The Great Ones aren't incomprehensible. They're all too comprehensible once you understand their fundamental drive. They want what all life wants: continuation, legacy, offspring. Being denied this basic need despite possessing godlike power creates a tragedy that echoes across dimensions, warping reality itself in the desperate attempt to find solutions where none exist according to natural law. The horror isn't that they're alien and unknowable. The horror is that they're alien and knowable, that we can understand their motivation even as we suffer the consequences of their attempts to fulfill it. Before I leave you to sleep, let me ask one more time, where are you listening from tonight? What corner of the world has drawn you into this exploration of Bloodborne's deepest lore? Comment below and let me know your location. It helps the algorithm share this video with other hunters seeking understanding. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into cosmic horror and tragedy, if the revelations about the Great One's true purpose resonated with you, please consider subscribing to this channel. Hit that like button if you found value in this exploration. Share it with fellow Bloodborne fans who might appreciate a fresh perspective on the lore. Your engagement helps me create more content like this, more deep dives into the games we love, more explorations of the stories and meanings that make gaming such a powerful medium for storytelling. Let your breathing slow now, in through your nose, out through your mouth. Feel your body becoming heavy, sinking into the mattress. Your eyelids are heavy. Your mind is calm. The streets of Yharnam fade into comfortable darkness. The crying of Mergo becomes distant and dreamlike. The Great Ones recede into the cosmic background, their purpose understood, their tragedy acknowledged, their desperation comprehended but no longer immediate. You've gained insight tonight, that precious commodity that in Bloodborne represents the expansion of consciousness beyond normal human limits. But this insight won't drive you mad. It won't transform you into something monstrous. It's safe knowledge, contained knowledge, understanding that illuminates rather than destroys. You can carry it with you into dreams, where it might flower into interesting narratives, or let it fade into sleep's gentle embrace, trusting that the understanding remains even if the specific details blur into comfortable vagueness. The moon hangs pale in the sky, but it's a normal moon, not the blood moon of Yharnam's nightmare. The night is peaceful, not filled with the hunt. You're safe in your bed, not running through gothic streets pursued by cosmic horror. The Great Ones are far away, confined to the game world, their desperate search for offspring unable to reach across the barrier between fiction and reality. You've explored their tragedy, understood their purpose, and now you can release it all into the peace of sleep. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Bloodborne's deepest mysteries. Thank you for spending this time exploring cosmic horror, tragic gods, and the revelation of the Great One's true purpose. May your dreams tonight be peaceful, touched perhaps with interesting images from the lore we've discussed but not disturbed by its darker implications. May you wake refreshed, carrying whatever insights resonated with you into a new day. And may you find, in future playthroughs of Bloodborne, a deeper appreciation for the tragic beauty of its narrative, the profound sadness underlying its cosmic horror, and the masterful way it makes us understand the incomprehensible. Good night,